Euromaxx highlights. Coming up on the show, cool ideas, refreshing tips for when the going gets hot. Queen's Year, a royal exhibition opens in London's Buckingham Palace. On the road, take a culture trail through Germany's Ruhr Valley. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Robin Merrill.
And a very warm welcome from our studios here in Berlin. We begin with an extraordinary art installation called Horizon Field in the Austrian Alps. It involves 100 iron figures dotted around the mountains at exactly the same height above sea level over an area of 150 square kilometres. It's the work of the British sculptor Antony Gormley, who loves to do things on a big scale. It's taken 5 years to prepare, and earlier this week there was a special opening up in the mountains once all the figures were finally in place.
Brass music high in the Austrian Alps, celebrating the official unveiling of Antony Gormley's installation. He's distributed 100 life-size iron human figures across the Vorarlberg Mountains.
I'm trying not to point out those things. What I want you to look at.
The figures are massive casts of the artist's own body. Each stands at an altitude of exactly 2,039 meters above sea level. Some are 60 meters from each other, others are several kilometers away. Together they form a level plain, the horizontal field.
Can you see the one on the cliff to the right? There's another one. And then further along there, but you really have to look. So this is a encouragement to seek and to find, maybe not to find. It's just an idea, an encouragement for people to be in this landscape and look, and maybe they'll find more interesting things than another Iron Man.
Art far from city museums that confront hikers and climbers on their way through the Alps.
So then he'll say, what the hell is this thing doing here? And then the sculpture says the same thing, asks the same question to the climber. And what about you? What are you doing here?
It's a wild idea somehow, that we're part of nature, but actually very tiny.
It's interesting. It can move you if you let it.
Antony Gormley invited all the local residents who helped him complete his mammoth project to the unveiling. It took 17 days to fly the 100 statues to their different locations by helicopter, an unusual challenge.
And then to place the figures the way the artist wanted. It wasn't just great teamwork, it also became a friendship.
Antony Gormley has distributed statues over the countryside in earlier projects, in the Mexican desert and on the North Sea coast. Always on hand, project initiator Eckhard Schneider.
This is the culmination of his previous projects, because the basic idea he has is best fulfilled here. On one hand, being radical art, and on the other, embedding it in a certain social and cultural context. All the groups whose interests are represented here. Landowners, hunting associations.
As a hunter, I'm keen to see how the animals react, but so far I haven't noticed anything negative.
I'm proud that as a local property owner, I can be part of this project, and I'm glad it's here.
Gormley's sculptures have inspired some visitors to the area to their own creative flights of fancy. At over 2,000 meters above sea level, you can make your own additions to the artworks.
It gives me some hope that the space of art can be useful. I really mean that, useful. Here we have an indication of the fact that people enjoy and want to be engaged. in an active way.
The Horizon Field is set to remain in place in the Austrian Alps for 2 years. But most of the people there would like the statues to stay forever.
And from the cool breezes of the Alps back to Germany, which has had one of the hottest summers since records began. So it's been a bumper season for those selling anything to cool you down. We've been investigating swimming pools. Of course, most people haven't got the room for a swimming pool, nor can they afford one. But as you're about to see, there are a lot of smaller and less expensive ways of getting a refreshing splash.
When the heat is on, Germany's city dwellers look for the coolest venues. Ice cream parlors, shady trees, and outdoor swimming pools. In German do-it-yourself stores, almost everything that has to do with cooling off or bathing is sold out. Manufacturers can hardly keep up with demand.
We ordered lots of stock in advance, so we had something on the shelves and in reserve. But we didn't think the weather would be this good.
Gutes Wetter für uns alle gibt, ja.
At the Terra Model Garden Center near Dusseldorf, designer showers. This refreshing garden shower costing €250 is in hot demand.
You can simply leap up onto it, refresh yourself, and come back down. A great invention. It's fun.
Bamboo, stainless steel, chrome-plated brass fixtures. Mark Holter places great value on high-quality materials. For 8 years, he and his team have been creating designer outdoor showers. His customers pay up to €1,000 for them. The showers are unusual, easy to set up, and above all, still available in the summer.
The trend is clearly towards wellness. People want swimming pools, saunas, or whirlpools in their garden. And the next trend is cocooning, withdrawing into your own home and equipping it optimally with showers and everything else to pamper yourself there.
Urban beaches are a popular meeting place in the summertime. The only disadvantage, the water is tantalizingly close, but not always fit for swimming. You can find an alternative solution online. A number of German websites rent out mobile pools. Just the thing for city beaches where people are not just seeking sun and sand, but also a cool dip.
It's ideal for the summer. It's really refreshing in this extreme heat. And it's great that it's a bit smaller. You can have a little pool party with your friends. That's better than going to a huge swimming pool with so many other people who sometimes bother you.
The pool takes just 20 minutes to set up, and then you're ready for a day of bathing pleasure. Grab a cool drink, and it's almost like being on holiday. Whether rented or bought, plastic or stainless steel, in Germany's cities, there are many ways to cool off.
Every summer, the British monarch Queen Elizabeth takes a well-earned break in Scotland. Meanwhile, her official London residence, Buckingham Palace, is briefly open to the public, and this year there's an exhibition there called The Queen's Year. All sorts of different things are on display, from historical ceremonial objects to some of the hats she wore at the races at Ascot. So our reporter Matthias Stamm smartened himself up and went along for a visit.
Matthias's mission is to get as close to the Queen as possible. First of all, he approaches some of her subjects.
How do I like the Queen? Yeah, I love the Queen. Absolutely fantastic. Does a great job.
I love her.
I'm supposed to be left-wing. I'm not supposed to like things like the royal family, but she does
a wonderful job for this country.
I love her. God save the Queen.
British monarchs have lived in Buckingham Palace for more than 150 years. It's a huge building with nearly 800 rooms.
The Royal Standard isn't flying above Buckingham Palace today. Instead, it's the Union Jack, and that means the Queen is not in residence. I expect she's on her way to Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where she spends her summer holidays. Normally, TV reporters aren't allowed to go near the front of the palace, but today I am even allowed to go inside of the palace, because when the Queen is away for her summer holidays, some of the staterooms are open for visitors.
Matthias is only allowed to enter the palace through a side door. The public has only been admitted to parts of the palace since 1993. Now some 300,000 people visit every summer. Our reporter first heads for the ballroom.
The ballroom is the largest room in the palace. This is where the official banquets are held, and the Queen entertains guests like stars and heads of states. And what can I say? This magnificent room is really fit for a queen.
This year, the summer exhibit is displaying for the first time the dress the Queen wore at her coronation in 1953. So this is a Queen's wardrobe, full of the kinds of outfits she regularly appears in. When she was younger, she wore slightly more daring outfits. Here are some of the hats she's worn at Ascot. Catherine Roberts is the exhibition's curator.
I think that people associate her with these great ceremonies and the great traditions and the history of the country. Some of these objects are quite familiar to people, and they might see them every year on the television, but it's bringing them all together in one place that makes it so special.
The Queen loves horse riding. Her saddle is among the exhibits on display. The Queen's horses have won more than 600 races. And now for a journey back in time to the Queen's first televised Christmas broadcast in 1957. To this day, she's only missed 1 year. Last year, more than 8 million viewers tuned in. The exhibition's highlights also include numerous medals and this sword.
That's the sword the Queen uses to bestow a knighthood. Stars like Elton John and Roger Moore have been knighted and are allowed now to call themselves Sir. With that, they belong to a very exclusive club with 100,000 living members.
Matthias's visit to Buckingham Palace ends 2 hours later.
I've had a very fascinating insight in the life and the work of the world's most famous monarch today. I mean, when do you get to see the sword that is still used to bestow knighthoods, plus all the personal belongings of the Queen, like riding trophies and hats. And one thing I learned is that the Queen is just a normal human being with normal hobbies and a rather conservative clothing style.
And Matthias looking quite conservative in his suit there as well. The Ruhr Valley used to be the industrial heartland of this country, but in recent years, most of the coal mines and steelworks have disappeared. It's undergone such a change that, amazingly, this area in Western Germany has been named a European Capital of Culture 2010. And one of the attractions is a special route that goes through the region between Herne, Gelsenkirchen and Bochum. It's a rather unique way of finding out how everyday life has changed for those who live there.
This stylish old brick building set among the trees has a less than idyllic past. This is a former machine room from a coal mine which has long since closed down. The only thing that hints at its past is this sign. The old building was converted into a modern apartment in the 1990s.
The idea was to try and tease out the industrial character of the building. You really couldn't see it anymore. A lot of people thought it was a church or something because of its size. It's so expansive and spacious.
As part of the Housing Culture Trail, people can visit the building, which belongs to architect Hans-Peter Anders. Every member of the family has their own room on the first floor. The bathroom window only emerged during conversion work. The entire front of the building was covered in soot and white paint. At Gelsenkirchen, the Housing Culture Trail goes through a traditional miners' housing estate. The Schungelberg development belongs to a former coal mine nearby. Siegfried Kessel used to work there.
This is a picture from the 1970s. This empty space you see here is where they built this white estate, these new buildings. That's where they are right now.
Siegfried Kessel and many of his former colleagues remained in Schungelberg after the mine closed. He's proud of the fact that his home is part of the European Capital of Culture 2010. It's part of his life.
It's about the way miners stick together. It's really important. If miners have anything to celebrate, then they don't put out invitations. You're either part of it or not. It's like a big family. I've known this housing estate since I was a child, and I don't want to leave it. I'm really happy here.
Anke Figgen was involved in planning the Housing Culture Trail.
The oldest buildings in this development were built in 1897. As time went on, more and more apartments were added. The styles are completely different in the various sections. There are bigger apartments in the buildings made for government officials. Then you have the smaller workers' apartments.
Further away, the Montseny residential development in the town of Herne hints at earlier industrial culture, even if it is only 5 years old.
The name refers to the old mining complex Montseny, which is where we are now. The mine was open until 1978. It was founded by two Frenchmen. The name Montseny was retained in memory of the old mine.
Now roof terraces look over a site once dominated by the pit frames. Brigitte Dahlem and her husband have been living in this penthouse apartment since 2005.
The neighbourhood is fantastic, with lots of good shops, and of course there's a great view from our apartment.
The spacious roof terrace looks out onto plenty of green and the industrial monuments, which just goes to show that stylish living is very much possible in Germany's former industrial heartland.
Now, there are literally hundreds of products that have been discovered in small villages or towns here in Europe, which meanwhile have become famous all over the world. We've got 3 examples for you coming up. Spa, a town in Belgium, synonymous with mineral water. A spa is also somewhere where people go to take the waters. Then there's the village of Camembert in France, famous for its cheese. First off, though, a fine red wine from northern Italy.
Welcome to the rolling vineyards of Piedmont, a popular retreat for many northern Italians, and the birthplace of Barolo. The famous red wine takes its name from this small town with its impressive castle. Around 200 years ago, Marquis Folletti and his French wife lived here. They laid the foundations for Barolo's global renown. The town of 800 is full of wine shops. One bears a portrait of Giulia Folletti, who turned the locally produced sweet wine into a world-class red wine. Today, the Abona family makes a dry Barolo in the castle's former wine cellar.
The quality depends on the seasonal climate, and in particular the amount of sunshine in the final months before harvest. July, August and September are the most important months for a good vintage. But you need the same amount of water the whole year round, and a hard winter with snow is crucial. That's what makes a good Nebbiolo different from a Barolo.
Nebbiolo is the name of the blue grape used to make the wine. It's derived from the Italian word nebbia, meaning fog, and that sometimes hangs over the hills in October, but also in early summer. Back to the Faletti family's former castle in the center of town. A vinotheque housed inside the medieval walls shows the broad spectrum of wines from Barolo and the surrounding region. Here you can find out about the best vineyards and vintages.
I'm happy that there is a possibility to touch this great culture of Italy.
Next stop, Camembert. The small village in France's Normandy region has more cows than people. Yet the name of this little community is known throughout the world thanks to the famous cheese of the same name.
I love it. We've got some at the cottage where we're staying, so it's nice and gooey, you know, it's lovely.
And this is where the milk for the cheese comes from. Normandy cows have a speckled hide and black rings around their eyes. Their milk is especially rich, a key part of what makes Camembert cheese special. Local lore has it that Camembert was invented by Marie Aurèle in this farmhouse in 1791 during the French Revolution. The local museum has an exhibit depicting the event. Raphael Joubert has studied the story. Apparently, a priest from the Brie region of France helped Marie Aurèle make the cheese.
He was trying to get out of France to escape the guillotine. He was on his way to the English Channel and Britain and hid out with Marie Aurèle for a week. And during this time, when he saw how she made fresh cheese and then immediately used it, he suggested she let it dry for a while in the cellar.
When Napoleon tried the cheese a few years later, he liked it so much that he gave it the name of the village where it was invented. Next stop, Spa. The town lies in the Ardennes forest in eastern Belgium. The name stands for much more than the town. This is where the custom of taking the waters started. Its spring waters made Spa famous. 300 springs have their source in the forest. Russia's Tsar, Peter the Great, was among those who came to drink the waters.
This fountain is more than 300 years old. The spa guests would stroll from the town into the forest to drink this water. All of Europe's nobility visited this spring.
Back then, guests were sure they knew which spring was good for which illness, but the waters were by no means the only attraction.
People always drank the water, but the main reason for coming here was to have a good time. That's why they built ballrooms and casinos here, so that people could forget their troubles and feel good, physically and emotionally.
Back in Italy, Vinter Gianluca Viberto knows how best to savor the full body and character of a different drink, Barolo wine.
Barolo has always been a wine of meditation, not for drinking alone. You enjoy it with company. It goes great with Piedmontese cuisine, with meat and cheese dishes. They mix well with the tannins of the wine.
A bottle of Barolo costs between 20 and 60 euros here, but the village enjoys plenty of repeat visitors.
We love it. Really.
Barolo, a king of wines whose fame goes far beyond the village of the same name.
And that's all for this edition. If you'd like to see more Euromaxx reports, go to our website at dw-world.de/English/Euromaxx, and you'll find out more about the programme there as well. That's all for now, though. So, auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.